all of Loki Season 1 is officially streaming over on Disney+, and now we're going to talk about it. Also, heads up, this review will include spoilers, so if you haven't seen all 6 episodes of Loki and want to, go watch them and then come back. So going into this show, I was very optimistic. I loved WandaVision and thought that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier was pretty good, but I didn't know how to feel about Loki, so I didn't have many expectations. But guys, this show is so great. From the very first episode, I was intrigued. Now this show has its ups and downs like every other show, which we'll get to later, but overall the show is incredible. Now right off the bat, let's talk about the story. It's fantastic. It is almost flawless. I say almost because there are a couple of tiny flaws with the story. The show is about Loki getting arrested by the TVA for causing a Nexus event back in Avengers Endgame. But once he's captured, Mobius wants his help to take down other Loki variants. Then at the end of episode 2, the story changes. Loki then meets Sylvie and follows her, causing them to be stuck on Lamentis. While there, Sylvie tells Loki that all of the TVA are variants, like them. So when Loki gets back to the TVA, he tries to convince the TVA that they're variants, leading to downright chaos. As you can see, the show isn't afraid to create a bunch of storylines. Now, you'd think that with only 6 episodes, that this wouldn't work out. Well, you'd be wrong. The creators somehow managed to fit a bunch of storylines into 6 episodes, without making any of them feel out of place. But that creates a bit of a problem. See, when I thought back on the show, I realized that it had a bit of a problem with some big surprises. Like, in episode 2, Sylvie just comes in, but it doesn't really feel big at that moment. Of course, it turns out to be, but not right there. Then, in episode 5, there are just a ton of Loki variants Loki encounters, and they're only in that episode, and classic Loki ends up dying, and you don't really end up getting attached to any of them. And finally, in episode 6, Kane the Conqueror shows up, except they don't say his name out loud once, and Sylvie ends up killing him. So again, not much intrigue on this character. So basically, a lot of the stuff fans were looking forward to doesn't add up to the story that much. However, despite that nitpick, the rest of the story flows insanely good. The story is mind-blowing, clever, and intriguing all the way through. Now moving on to the characters. Before watching this show, I didn't really care for Loki. He was fine in the movies, but I wasn't really begging to see more of him. This show is about Loki trying to redeem himself for the bad things he has done and is going to do. This leads to emotion, which shocked me because Loki isn't the character you typically get invested in. But Loki tries his hardest to redeem himself and open himself up to others, so you get pretty emotional when someone betrays him. Now, next up is Sylvie. Sylvie was also pretty good, but the worst part of her character was the emotion. I think that the creators tried to get you to feel for Sylvie, but it didn't really work. Now, her main goal in the show is to take down the TVA and figure out who's behind it, which was probably the best part of the entire show, just a great storyline. However, they sometimes try to get you to feel for her, and it doesn't work. Her goals are understandable, considering the TVA took her life away from her when she was just a child, but the things she does and plans to do to bring down the TVA aren't exactly something you can make emotional. Also, I think we need another reason to connect with Sylvie, not just that the TVA took her life away from her. Now let's talk about the TVA characters. Mobius, Ravonna, Hunter B-15, and Hunter C-20 are the big standouts. Mobius's goal throughout the show is to get Loki to help the TVA catch the other Loki variants. But this is not all he does. Mobius then becomes a very essential part to the show when he finds out that the TVA is lying to him. Then he gets pruned, gets sent to the end of time, comes back, and then fights off against Ravonna, which was incredible. It was pretty much the main highlight of the show. Same with Ravonna, because when people start figuring out the truth of the TVA, she has to stop them, and she will prune whoever she has to get the job done. And because of the storyline, she really becomes essential to the plot, and you're rooting for the other characters to stop her. Hunter B-15 is also a pretty big part of the story. I didn't really like her in the first 3 episodes, mostly because she felt uninteresting, but when we got to episode 4, I immediately liked her. Also, Hunter C20 was pretty much a scene stealer. She only had about 3 scenes before being possibly pruned, not very clear. But the actress who played it killed it in those 3 scenes. And it's a shame Hunter C20 was more of a background character. Now, there's one more person I want to mention, which is Miss Minutes. She was pretty good in here, and it was always fun to see the way she acted in front of other people. And even though she wasn't essential, I wouldn't cut her out if I had a choice. Now, probably the main reason all the characters work is the voice actors. Everyone does a phenomenal job playing their characters. No one feels the same and no one feels out of place. I hope to see all these actors in more stuff in the future and also see them back in their roles here. So let's talk about the show's ups and downs. The first episode is great and really gets you excited for the rest of the episodes. Episode 2 is almost as good as the first one, but it did get me optimistic for the future of the show, because there were a couple of things in that episode that I didn't really like. Episode 3, which people have dubbed the filler episode, is not as good as the first 2, but it is still enjoyable, and I think it is still necessary for the show. Episodes 4 and 5 are spectacular. These episodes left me shocked by how good they were. Episode 5 more because episode 4 was so good that it was shocking that they actually topped it. Those 2 episodes are the highlight of the entire show, and I won't stop gushing about them for a while. Now, episode 6 is kind of disappointing. It's not the worst episode in the show, but it has the least amount of interesting stuff in it. There are only a few things that happen here, which mostly set up season 2. For example, Kane is in this episode only, and they don't really explain why he's there or what he's doing. Sylvie kills Kane, but in order to, she has to send Loki back to the TVA, so he won't be able to stop her. Then back to TVA, Loki finds Mobius and Hunter B-15, and they don't remember who he is. And that's where we end, which is just a terrible decision. Look, I didn't want this season to end with everything wrapped up, but what I did want was Loki and Sylvie to come to grips with what has happened. I think that would have been a better place to end instead of just having them figuring out stuff and that's it. Before I give you my final thoughts, some people have been asking the question, is Loki better than the previous Marvel Disney Plus shows? And the answer is yes. This actually took me a while to figure out, because for the first 3 episodes I was like, I like this, but I don't know if it's better than WandaVision. But when we got to episode 4, I was like, yeah, this is better than WandaVision. So overall, Loki's an incredible show that beautifully sets up Phase 4 of the MCU. I'm giving Loki Season 1 an 8 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching this review. I will have a couple more reviews for you before we reach August, so stay tuned for that. If you like my videos, consider subscribing and hitting the notification button so you never miss a video. Also, I have a second channel called Nerd Nation Vlogs, where I will be vlogging about my movie experiences before I review them. My first video on there will probably be this Sunday, but I'm not sure yet. Check the channel out if you want to. Link is in the description. I will see you guys next time. Bye.